Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Podcast Today show. As you know, I'm your host, Lee Dahill, and today we've got Mark, who's the commercial director at Rex Software on the show. Now, I always ask the person who I've got on the show to tell us a little bit about them and what they've been up to. So, Mark, if you don't mind, I'm going to hand over to you for your introduction.
Thanks, Lee. That was a great introduction. I'm Mark. I'm commercial director at Rex Software. Been at Rex for 5.5 years now, since our initial launch in the UK. So I've seen the ups and the downs, every sale that's been made during that period, every customer that we've had on board, and have been at the centre of the Rex universe during that time.
Good stuff, Mark. And I'm going to talk to you about that sort of 5-year journey, and I'm also going to talk to you about some of the stuff that I've seen. Like when I've seen on LinkedIn that you're in Australia, and you're overseeing the group and stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well. But Australia versus UK learnings, teachings, vice versa. So first off, let's start with the 5 years and reflection. So what's happened over these years?
Yeah, good question. So we came to the UK and we launched in around the end of 2019. So we launched at that time. We started to build a little bit of momentum in the first couple of months of 2020. And then, as everyone is aware, March 2020, COVID hit and sort of put a little bit of a stalling in the growth plans around that time. And we had to kind of reprioritize how we looked at things in the UK market. So it was that was quite an interesting time for everyone, really, and real estate that just took off completely. But I guess like during that time, there's a lot that we've learned, and I'd say what our sort of initial impressions were when we came to the UK market, or the initial impressions of the business, were that the UK looked to Australia quite a lot with how they operate. We have a lot of Australian trainers who have quite a big name over here and operate within a few of the training groups. And we thought that, right, they look to Australia for trainers. Will they then also look for tech as well? And will this be something where it's quite an easy plug and play? And the first couple of months or so, it wasn't really what we expected it to be.
Okay. And why do you think that was? What did you learn from that?
So we learned quite a lot. I'd say the very, very first thing that we learned was that data in the UK is messy. And so for context, in Australia, if you are to move a company from one CRM to another, the data extraction and cleanliness of the data, most of the CRMs are fairly aligned in data fields, and when data comes out of one system, it's not that difficult to get it into the new system. But the big difference is that the Australian portal, so REA and Domain being the two main ones over there, once a month they do what they call a portal dump. So they will actually provide you with the listing data in a CSV file of what is available, of what your current available stock looks like, and you just upload that into your new CRM. And so it's an incredibly easy switchover, whereas the UK portals don't do that. And so moving live data from one CRM to another CRM is a tricky timing process, a tricky alignment process, making sure all the fields map up. Is there a field missing in one CRM that's not missing in another? And then do it as quickly as possible so that there is as small a window as is possible of time where you're double entering data. And we feel we've got it, after a while we got it nailed, but during the first couple of months that was a big surprise. There are a couple of other surprises as well. We felt that we found that agency models in the UK are evolving and slightly more fragmented. So in the UK, we've got the emerging self-employed model, which over the last 5 years has massively taken off.
Yes.
Got different types of corporate models, independents, hybrid models, however you want to define that. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot. And it's required us to be really flexible with workflows and permission structures and reporting tools. Whereas in Australia, it's a lot more of a one size fits all, I'd say. So they're probably the two key things that we've learned.
Brilliant. And I know you spoke about surprises and stuff. Was there one that stood out to you the most that's been sort of like the biggest surprise that the group or yourself has seen?
I think for the business, the biggest surprise was how UK agents absorb all the marketing costs in
Yep.
such a way that it probably stifles their own growth as well. So, unlike Australia, where VPA, vendor paid advertising, is standard, UK agents really still absorb the cost of the premium listings, videography, how whatever they do, and it kind of it limits their differentiation a little bit and makes it harder to scale that top tier marketing, because you've then got to absorb it in your fee at the end rather than taking anything up front. We're seeing that change a little bit, but that was a big surprise about how marketing costs just have to be absorbed by the agency.
Yes, I think it's different models, isn't it? And I think that it probably leads me quite nicely onto the next question that I've got for you, which is, what can UK agents teach Australian agents and vice versa?
Yeah, that's a really great question. One thing we noticed, and I'm not sure everyone's necessarily going to agree with it, is we found that we feel that Australian agents are probably better out and out salespeople, but UK agents are better business people, so better strategic business people. And what I feel that UK agents could teach Australian agents, I'll start with that one, is around probably around process and dealing
Yes,
with larger volume. UK agents are fantastic at that, having
they
a
are.
really robust process, particularly in the lettings and property management side. But Australian agents could teach the UK agents about just, I would say, sales technique and being relentless with prospecting. And I think that's something that Australian agents have to do. Whereas in the UK, I think our prospecting is probably a step behind generally. And day-to-day robust prospecting could be something that is worked on by general UK agents.
Okay. And for me, I like the idea, I'm probably biased, but I prefer the idea that I'd rather be a good business person than, a great salesperson, because with business, there's overall everything that comes within it versus sales, which is more of a skilled, one part of business, a very important part of business. But if you are able to put it all together, I feel that that's probably a more useful part of running a company, which is probably why you get some really great agents, because of the way that they run their company. And is it the same, and this may sound like a stupid question, but is it the same where, for example, you'll have an agent over here which does have different sort of parts to their business, like the lettings part, that you might have a plug-in for this and a plug-in for that and a plug-in for something else that helps you manage all the parts that you need to keep that business rocking and rolling? Or is it different, as in there's just one thing that you do and everybody does it this certain way?
Yeah, good question. So typically it's a bit more siloed.
Okay.
So they'll you focus on sales within a small patch in Australia. You don't necessarily have a lettings arm of the business, and unlikely have a property management arm either. One thing that's different as well, fees on sales are just under double what they are in the UK. So you're
Hmm.
looking at somewhere between 2.5% and 3% as an average, whereas lettings fees are significantly lower than they are in the UK. So it is a big difference there. The departments are very siloed, so you will rarely, well, I'd say rarely, you won't often have a real estate agency that will also have lettings and have a rent roll there. Probably
Hmm.
becoming a bit more common, but
Hmm.
it's not in the same way in the UK, in which you would typically expect the majority of larger agencies, or even two branches and above, to have diversified into lettings, and then see that as kind of almost like the core part of their business now.
Interesting. I did ask you, Mark, to bring some stats with you, that you've pulled off for me, which I want to talk about. And you pulled off a stat for me about property listings that take 14 days, take over 14 days to go under offer, have 42% more inquiries if the images are reordered, which I thought was, you know, an incredible stat. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you find it, and tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so we've had a bit of functionality in the system for years called image cycling. And what it
Okay.
essentially does is it enables you to automate that process of changing the order of the images in your brochures, on the portals, wherever you kind of display your listings. And we've had it for years, and we saw an article or a guide that Rightmove put out maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it was some advice from them that recommended that you change the order of the images on Rightmove every 7 days, or I think, but without changing them the first time for 14 days or something. I've got the guide somewhere. I'll be able to pull it up. And so we tested the idea with about 200 offices that use Rex, and what we essentially asked them to enforce, and which you can do within Rex, enforce that after 14 days the images were changed, the order of them were changed, they were cycled, and we did this as kind of like an A/B split. So some enforced it, some didn't, within the same offices. And we found that those that weren't sold within 14 days or didn't go under offer within 14 days, when you cycled the images, they then received 42% more inquiries in the same time that they were on they were being advertised. So it's an enormous amount, particularly if you take those additional 42% and you look at the percentage of those that are buyers who have a property to sell that's not yet on the market. There's an enormous additional opportunity from that data for you to win new instructions. And every little bit of data that you can get into your database, good data that's coming in, is an opportunity for you. If you look at the average fee per contact, for example, in your database, if you track that.
And I think I personally didn't know that the stat was that high. Now, obviously, I would have assumed that it would make it look new because you've shuffled it, or they may not have seen the garden because it had the front image of the house instead of the garden, or a kitchen, and the kitchen's nice, and then they scroll through and they think, oh, I didn't look at this one before, or oh, I did look at that, but I hadn't seen all the pictures. So is that kind of how you think that creates the more inquiries based on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the way to look at it is that if you're trawling through Rightmove, I think with the standard listing, you get 2 images when you go into the list option, and if typically one's going to be the outside of the property, and another might be the best internal photo, or what they feel is going to be the best display. If you've got a buyer who's wanting a new build or something that they don't have to do a lot of work to, and the outside of that property that they're displaying is a 60s or a 70s build, and the first image is maybe sort of a fairly grainy image of the living room, it's not going to be something that massively draws their attention there. But if what you're being able to show as the first image is an open plan living room kitchen that's got a brand new kitchen, and then it's got bifold doors onto the garden, they're the 2 images that you're displaying, the likelihood that they're probably going to click on that and think, oh, that looks really great, is much, much higher. And they can probably get past it being a 60s or a 70s build because it's and not a new build or not a recent build, because it actually fits exactly what they're looking for. So it's about catering for as many buyers as possible and keeping things refreshed and keeping things looking new. And cycling the images is a really great way of doing that.
Interesting. I think that it's definitely, if an agent isn't thinking about doing that or done it, I think it's definitely worth them, you know, trying it on any property that they've had over the sort of 14 days, because you don't have anything to lose, and reshuffling it is a fantastic tip. So thanks for bringing that to the stat and bringing it to the show, Mark. I do appreciate it. I've got one more that you pulled out a stat for me. Now, I wasn't, when I first saw it, I wasn't sure what that means. So I want to ask you that at the end, which is, you mentioned to me about 27% of listings that are made live on Rex go onto the agent's websites 24 hours before they go on the portals. So how does this help?
Yeah, so we at Rex, we certainly during our sales demo and then during the ongoing training, we highlight to agents there's some great ways in which you can engage with your database a little bit more. So a lot of other CRMs, it's just about storing data within the database, and then that data doesn't really get used. We've got functions in Rex which enable like better database marketing and and utilizing your data that little bit more. So one of those that we talk about is the portal upload delay. And what that enables agents to do is set an automated delay between the time a listing goes live to their website, live to buyers in their database, and then 24 hours, 48 hours later goes live onto the portals. So what we encourage them to do is every single time they're registering a buyer is to say, make sure you follow us on Facebook, make sure you follow us on Instagram, join our exclusive buyer list, because you're going to find out about listings 24 hours or 48 hours before the rest of the market. And it kind of makes them feel like they're getting that better service, that they're part of this exclusive club or exclusive group that gets access. And if they're serious buyers, it's going to get them kind of moving quickly, get them booking viewings quickly, and being able to kind of, you can then highlight to your vendors the additional service or additional work that you're doing to get their property sold. So highlighting more to the vendors. But equally, for those buyers who are registering with you and you're saying follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, they're receiving additional content from you. They're more holistically within your ecosystem, and you're able to control what their experience with your agency looks like. So if you're registering buyers who we define, or the UK market would define as not proceedable because they've registered for you but their property is not on the market, or they haven't sold their property yet, if they're not on the market and what they're getting or what they're seeing with their experience with an estate agent is that they are part of this exclusive club and they have great content going out to them all the time on Facebook and Instagram, really educational content as well, who are they more likely to instruct when they do come to sell the property? That agent that's providing that, or one that they walk past down the street and just occasionally see their board or occasionally see their office? I know which one I'd pick.
Yeah, and I think that comes with building the brand and being a part of that whole package, doesn't it? For what the local kind of consumers, all of them see, you know, from people that are thinking of selling, not selling, sold, not even thinking about it for 5 years. But it's about keeping in contact in a way of them being seen and you being seen as proactive and in front of that audience. So I that's why I said to you when I first saw it, I thought, what does that mean, you know? But when you look at it as the whole package and what that's able to do for an agent's brand, I think it's a part of the whole package that helps them build that profile, build that business. So Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you sharing the insights and the differences and going through that with us. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate your time.